Hello and welcome to a special footy mailbag episode where we will look at the draft that happened last week. We'll run our eyes over all three drafts and see who could make an instant impact for their club and our Supercoach teams in 2026. My name is Damo and here with me is Clarky. How are you, my friend?
Hello, I definitely wasn't late.
Definitely not. You were here on time as usual.
I definitely wasn't in my kitchen eating Percy Pigs.
Excellent. And our guest this week has a YouTube channel with more than 10,000 subscribers. He's good value all through the season, but does some of his best work around draft time. It is Pommy from the PommyInOZ YouTube channel. How are you, mate?
I'm good, mate, and not sponsored, but also eating Percy Pigs. The third best thing out of the English Isles are Percy Pigs.
What are the other two?
Me would be top three. And, definitely prime Keira Knightley.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, all right, fair enough. Well, I feel left out because I don't have Percy Pigs.
Well, see, the problem is, Damien, you need someone English in your life. So my wife is from the UK, and we've got, obviously, Pommy. Marks and Spencers have brought over a whole range of stuff that is ridiculously priced in Australian dollars, but Percy Pigs, for the listeners at home, they're a small, I'll say gelatinous, but they're not. I don't think they use gelatin, so they're actually they're semi-vegan friendly. Check my work on that. But they're lollies, soft gummy lollies. Delicious, amazing. There's nothing like them.
Taste a little bit like strawberry mixed with marzipan for those watching it, I'd say. Yeah, got marzipan aftertaste. Really nice. Would recommend.
Fair enough. All right. Well, if you like Percy Pigs, you should let us know. And no, we won't. We won't be doing more Percy Pig content. Well, actually, Clarky might. I don't know what Clarky's going to do in the off season.
There's a new column in our household budget that just says Percy Pigs. So I don't know. We'll see how we go.
So draft happened last week, and across all three drafts, 64 new names went onto lists, and the number one pick was Willem Dersma to the West Coast Eagles, listed as a utility in pre-draft content, now listed as a midfielder in Supercoach for next season. But Pom, he can play all over the ground, up forward, down back, in the midfield, on the wing, wherever he's required. Where do you think he settles in for West Coast? And do you think that he could be moved around and be not quite worth that high price tag the number one pick gets, or do you think it's someone we just have to start because the job security will be there and he's basically got the skill set to be good anywhere?
Very good player is Willem Dersma. Very underrated, I think, as well, which is weird. A pick one. I don't think a pick one's got as generated as much dislike and as discourse of his ability other than Willem Dersma. And Harley Reid went through it. I don't think the media liked him when he was a draftee. He was heavily scorned. Dersma, it seems to be footballing ability that's gone against him. But as a kid at Gippsland Power, not many players can play on the ball, on the wing, half forward, half back, centre half back. He played a couple of games as well in game, which is crazy to think. I think, look at Tom McCarthy as the benchmark. I think Tom McCarthy is one of my favourite footballers to watch. He averaged around 90, I believe, in Supercoach. I remember me and Leckdog, I had the option to buy him in one of our leagues I was in, and Leckdog going, yeah, get Tom McCarthy, he's worth the risk. Why I say Tom McCarthy is these players that will start in that loose role in the halfback, they're going to get a bit of time on the ball to phone in. They've got no Jayden Hunt. Remember, he retired. So I think he takes Hunt's position straight away on the wing, rotating through the halfback line. That seems to be where they like to feed their players in. I don't think you'll get a lot of inside midfield minutes. So I actually think he would be quite a tasty option. They've got good insiders that'll get the ball out. That's not Dersma's bread and butter. Dersma's bread and butter has been on the end of things. So I think Dersma, he's going to come in at a high price, but he's probably the closest to job security combined with output, combined with the ability to be where the ball is. I think he'd be worth the risk. He's probably the most sure thing at that value that you can get in the top 5 players, I would say.
The other players that West Coast picked up, Cooper Duff-Tytler, who was probably the number one pick until a few months out, and then they also picked up Josh Lindsay later in the first round. All three of these first round selections are probably going to be there round one and have the best job security, but Duff-Tytler's the interesting one with ruck forward eligibility in Supercoach next season. He's going to be a popular player, and he's been compared to a Luke Jackson or a Tom DeConning type, but the talls don't usually score well straight off the bat for Supercoach. Does Duff-Tytler start as a ruckman or a key forward, do you think, at the next level?
I think all my draft previews, we tried to do a PR campaign for Cooper Duff-Tytler because everyone kind of forgot he existed. He became a little bit like Posh Spice in the Spice Girls. You know she's there, but you don't really care. So I felt sorry for him, so I tried to build him up a little bit. I think you've got to look at Cooper as a key forward that happens to partake in the Ruckcraft dark arts. I think you look at his VFL for Essendon, he bullied AFL-listed St Kilda defenders in that game. So I think they'll look at him as a second, third option. They've got a really good forward line at West Coast, so I think he's going to be able to take one of the bigger bodies on his own, learn his craft. I don't expect to see him do vast amounts of ruck with Bailey Williams, Flynn there. I think I'd stay away from him as Supercoach because I don't think he's going to score prolifically until he becomes a 50% ruckman, which is probably 2-3 years down the track. Josh Lindsay, though, that is a footballer. Like Josh Lindsay, he reminds me, you're probably not allowed to say a name anymore in Australian media, but do you remember Holly Valance when she did that song Kiss Kiss? Like, that is what it's like watching video highlights of Josh Lindsay kick. You just find yourself pausing and finding yourself a quiet, dark room to take it in. Very similar to Holly Valance's video clip, an incredible kick of the football. It was like the first time I heard the Beatles when I watched his left foot out at halfback this year. Had a tear in my eye. He's going to be another player that I think gets a lot of minutes for West Coast. In a game that is all about transition football, Willem Dersma and Josh Lindsay, I think, are really big scoring options. And I think Lindsay gets minutes because he does what everyone craves. Hits targets, retains the ball, going at nearly 90%. I think he's a really intriguing prospect, and I think he'll play a lot of games next year. I think Eagles don't have the depth in that position. So I do think Lindsay, it's an easy position, half-back flank when you're a kid. So I expect to see a lot of minutes from Josh Lindsay and Tom McCarthy. I think that could be one of the best half-back lines in the league on paper in 2 or 3 years' time. They're very good users of the football, both of them.
Clarkey, as a Melbourne fan, Melbourne picked up Xavier Taylor and Latrell Pickett. Latrell Pickett, obviously, is the cousin of Cozzy Pickett. Do you believe in Melbourne's best 23? Both of those players are in it?
Honestly, I think it's still early to tell what Kingy wants to do with the Melbourne lineup. I'd actually be surprised if there were any really out there changes, apart from maybe Stephen May being charged with assault might affect his selectability, which might cause some magnets to move within our defensive six. We have need of forwards, but is Latrell Pickett the answer when we actually lacking key position forward rather than medium-sized forwards and trending smaller with Latrell? I think they're both fantastic players, and I think it shows that Melbourne's current plan and Stephen King's plan is longer term than 2026. I probably wouldn't be relying on them to play significant games, but once again, it's a kind of a whole new world, like where Simon Goodwin was predictable in the sense that he was unpredictable, where, Kynan Brown played all of about 10 minutes for Melbourne before being delisted at the end of the season, and, we have players who are sort of in and out of the side quicker than you could even remember who their names were, including but not limited to Jack Billings. Remember Jack Billings? He was back and then he disappeared into obscurity at Casey. So I think Xavier Taylor as a defender probably represents a longer term investment to replace guys like Marty Hall was delisted again. Tom McDonald keeps on getting 1 year after another, which I absolutely respect, but he's getting older and he moves like a yacht. Stephen May is probably well past his best football, so I think there's probably going to be some need to restructure over the next few years, whether that's going to eventuate in anything in 2026? My heart says probably not, but I'm open. I'm open to change. That's what this next season is going to be about for all Melbourne fans and all Melbourne as a club.
The thing that stands out for me is what something that's been lost in this coaching change at Melbourne is Simon Goodwin would draft and then play the kids almost straight away, or like you'd always have one or two debutants most years, or one or two players that would come out of nowhere to cement a place in the best 23, whereas Stephen King has come from the Geelong system where they would only give their draftees a taste as the sub or the taste in a couple of games and then would only unleash them a year or two down the track. So does the existing regime that is still there, that was there under Simon Goodwin, push for Xavier Taylor and Latrell Pickett to get games from the get-go, or does Stephen King adopt some of the way that Chris Scott did it there at Geelong and kind of leave these guys off Broadway for a little while before introducing them? And like the way Simon Goodwin gave kids time to cement their place, whereas at Geelong it was you come in and you contribute straight away, and if you don't, you're out. Which one are we going to see? What are we going to see at Melbourne with these players? Are they best 23? Like people want
the problem with Simon Goodwin though doing that is that the players that he was immediately giving time to were extreme talents like Caleb Windsor, Harvey Langford, and it's like it's kind of a no-brainer because they were filling a need. Melbourne had that desperate need for players of that caliber to slide in. We have a relatively solid back six that was not really supported by a game plan. So realistically, they could probably stumble through without too much change to that core unit. We've had Christian Petrarca and Clayton Oliver leave the club, but we've already replaced them with guys like Caleb Windsor, guys like Xavier Lindsay, guys like Harvey Langford. So really, I think Latrell Pickett makes sense to build up a forward core, but he's really not what we're looking for, which means that Stephen King's probably still in on the Jacob Van Rooyen key forward basket, maybe. And I don't see the same thing happening with Taylor and with Pickett and even with some of our later selections. It seems like we're building a long-term depth squad, which is actually the experience that we need from Geelong to come to Melbourne, is actually developing a system that can fill the pieces and actually give meaningful experience to young talent over years, instead of having guys come in and play, Casey Fields for obscurity and then be delisted before you can go, who the fuck is Will Verrill?
Yeah, fair enough. Okay. So, I mean, something to think about when we're putting our teams together then, for sure. I know Xavier Taylor is a popular figure in a lot of people's early thoughts when it comes to rookies, so something to watch for sure. Pom, we can't have you on without talking about Carlton for at least a little bit. They picked up Harry Dean. They had to match a bid that West Coast placed on him. He's being talked about as playing alongside Jacob Wiedering from the get-go. Do you believe that to be the case as well?
100%, yeah. It's a rare territory for Carlton to have an NGA or a father-son, and you go and look at them and you kind of are like, oh, if he was called Harry Thompson, would I care? I think quite early on, particularly at the back end of last year, you could see that Harry Dean was built different to what we've seen before. And towards the back end of the year, I think you've seen Harry Dean add so many strings to his bow. It's quite impressive, incredible to watch him. And I think he's AFL ready from the get-go, and I'm looking forward to it. There is a spot opened up. Harry Farrell, obviously, Farrell unfortunately will miss this year with his ACL. So I think that's an area for Carlton to definitely utilise the guy. And he's the modern-day player. He uses the ball very well. He attacks the corridor. Everything he does is aggressive, plays the game with a real ostentatious attitude. It's really nice to watch as well. He's got beautiful kick-through action as well, very repeatable and very rare in 2025 to say this about a defender, but a defender who actually defends, which for those listening at home, that's very rare. We usually talk about defenders and their attacking skills, forgetting their job is to defend. So I'm excited, and I always look at someone who I'm going to compare him to. This is a big comparison, but reminds me a lot of a young Jacob Wheatering. I remember Jacob Wheatering is one of the first drafts I've covered. I would say Harry Dean is, although 2 centimetres shorter than Wheatering at the time, I think he's a lot more skillful with the ball, but particularly very, very strong aerially and on smaller players. So I'm really intrigued about Harry starting. I think he will start round 1, and I think he's probably going to play every game this season, touch wood, with no injuries. And I'm looking forward to seeing Dean play.
Being so close in playstyle to Jacob Wiedering, I remember Jacob Wiedering when he was in his draft year. He was in almost every Supercoach team that following year, and he actually scored quite well for a rookie. Do you think Harry Dean will be Supercoach relevant? He averaged, I think it was 92 in the under-18s and 104 in the Coates League, so pretty good pedigree coming into the AFL, just hasn't played at VFL level, so we don't quite know how he goes with the step up in intensity.
Yeah, well, I think his game's copy and paste for the AFL. Everything he does is class. He backs himself. We saw that with Harry O'Farrell. He's quick. So Harry O'Farrell, when he started to just back himself that he could beat these big guys, he looked really good. I look at Wheatering, and I think when Wheatering did his best work, it was probably about 2020, 2021. I think that's prime Wheatering for me in role. I expect Harry Dean now to be in a situation where we give him that role. And we're like, right, Wheatering's going to take the big ox. He's going to lock him down. Harry, you've got a little bit of loose role to play. Enjoy yourself. So I wouldn't be shocked to see him around that 70s, Harry Dean, maybe mid-60s to be on the safe side. I think he's not going to tear the world alight, but I think from a football perspective, he'll be very impressive for Carlton. And I think most Blues fans like myself will be getting excited this time next year, because suddenly you've got the Harry brothers now, Harry O'Farrell and Harry Dean, to play alongside Wheatering. Suddenly that back three with your big guys has come a long way from the era of Lewis Young, Lockie Plowman. So we'll get the streamers out. Flags are coming.
And Pommy, your round 1 rivals, Richmond, they had a pretty good draft themselves, getting Sam Cumming and Sam Grill. I'm of the opinion that in their best 23, there is only room for one of them initially. They obviously went really hard at last year's draft, and they've built some really nice pieces over the last season under Adam Uze. And I think early on, I think it's one or the other, and early preseason footage would suggest it's Sam Grill. But how do you see their best 23 shaping up? Do you think there is room for both?
Richmond did really well this draft, and it really does help when you nail your draft the year before as well. Like, you can take a little bit of a punt, as it were. Sam Cumming, I find another disrespected footballer for a team that dominated at Nash Champs, the South Australians. Zero respect has been paid to them as players. And Sam Cumming, go and watch a North Adelaide game if you're listening to this after this podcast. Go and watch him play in the men's. This guy made men look small. So I think Sam Cumming, although he doesn't smile in pictures, when he plays, the football sings when he plays. But I do agree with you, though. I think Sam Grill probably comes in to the system in an easier position in the terms of, I think he'll start at the halfback, very quick. He'll move up to the wing eventually. There's that nice hole of Cam McIntosh that's been left. Maybe Sam Grill will eye that as the modern day prototype winger. I don't think either of these will score particularly highly, though. Like, my gut says that I think they're in a real nice position that they can drip feed these guys' games. But Sam Cumming and Sam Lawler on that half forward flank, that's like having 2 Dustin Martins that you've bought from Temu. I'll caveat that. Temu. Richmond fans, don't get excited. I'm not saying you've got Dustin Martins straight away, but I think the scope of growth from Sam Cumming could be scary, and I wouldn't be shocked to see him be the best player in this draft class in 10 years' time. Like, I do think he's got all the tools to be an incredible footballer.
And then Essendon possibly had the biggest night of all, getting Sully Roby, Jacob Farrow, and then Dyson Sharp with that later pick. Dyson Sharp falling out of the top 10 is possibly the biggest gift for Supercoaches ever. and he could be Essendon's captain in 3-4 years' time. Like, he's got that leadership about him. He's been an Essendon fan all of his life. He's going to be someone we not only want to start with in Supercoach, but he's going to start with a really nice sort of average in his first year, and he could be one of the top Supercoach midfielders eventually as his career progresses. Sully Roby announced today that he's now got a stress fracture in his back. He did grow 17 centimetres out of nowhere, so that's not unusual to hear after a growth spurt, but they've done remarkably well with Roby, Farrow and Sharp. That's given them a key big body playmaker in all three parts of the ground.
Yeah, I mean, look, I'm a Carlton fan first and foremost. It's sickening to talk about them in a positive, but I think without a shadow of a doubt, they nailed this draft. They're the big winners of this. I mean, we haven't even talked about another player. They got Max Gondagiannis, who is everything we've said about the medium-sized intercept defenders. He's just that player as well, probably less exposure with the injuries that he had. But Dyson Sharp, I'm glad you're giving him some love. The black backdrop that makes stars shine brighter. He is the natural successor that every team has. Every team disrespects until you need one. I think Dyson's going to be the most boring footballer you'll ever watch, and that's why I love Dyson so much. He's been my boy all the last 2 years. I think he'll surprise a lot of people as well, and I think he's going to play with a chip on his shoulder as well, because it's a disgrace. And this is not a knock on the players, but some of the players' names that were called out before him, when you look at the year Dyson Sharp has had, and then the year he had the year before, under 16 MVP as well, it's kind of disrespectful because, yes, this guy hasn't got the sex appeal of the other players in an aesthetic way, but this guy's very, very good. So I'm looking forward to Dyson. I think he's probably the most ready-made of the top 15 players, I would say, to play at. He did it at Sandford level, and he comes into a team that is desperate for that type of grunt. But Jacob Farrell's probably the most exciting one of that. I know everyone loves Sully Roby. I'm glad you mentioned Damo. When you grow that much, it's going to cause issues, and I'm proud of Essendon that they've accounted it early. That shows they've changed from just injecting them and making them train. They're doing the right thing by Roby, but I think Jacob Farrow, him and Archie Roberts off the halfback line, that's a fearsome halfback line. And the upside of Farrow over Lindsay, the guy's got proven midfield, so Lindsay's more of a Josh Weddle. I think Jacob Farrow could be Will Day in 3 years' time. I think there's a little bit of Will Day in this guy.
I'm a big fan of Jacob Farrow, and compared to the likes of a Hayden Young, that's going to prick my ears up every single time anyone gets compared to Hayden Young, gets compared to Jacob Farrow. Wow. I loved Lockie Doverston's interview where they asked him, they say you play like Nick Watson, and his response was, maybe Nick Watson plays like me. North Melbourne have been crying out for someone with this kind of attitude in their forward half for a long time. They've drafted talent, but now they've drafted not only talent, but also a personality as well. Someone on the footy field that's going to bring people to games, and he's going to step into their forward line straight away, you would imagine. Gold
Who
Coast.
were asking, Demo? Sorry.
I was just going to move on.
That's a statement now.
That's a statement. Gold Coast picked up their academy picks, Zeke Ewland, Dylan Patterson, and Jai Murray, and Bo Adensall, all in the first round. They were all bid on, and they matched. Everyone's jumping on Zeke Ewland, but Dylan Patterson's the one that I've fallen in love with myself. Pom, tell me about Dylan Patterson. Obviously, Zeke Ewland's a great talent. Jai Murray is a great talent. Bo Adensall's that pure mid who's just going to be good anywhere he plays or at any level. But Dylan Patterson is special. He is a special talent who is probably the most ready to step up to the next level out of these four guys.
Yeah, we have an obsession in Australia football, particularly, that we kind of poo-poo other sports. And if you look at how the game is being played at the minute, particularly off halfback, pace, ball use, you've got to have one of them. You've got to have one of them two fundamentals. And you watch Dylan Patterson play, and he looks like any back you watch in rugby league at the minute. He's quick. He attacks. When he sees a small gap, he takes it. And that's one of the wonderful things about Dylan when you watch him play this year in junior football. This guy is quick. This guy sees a small gap. He takes it. He's offense first. He's about to learn off two of the best halfbacks we have in football at the minute, Danny Rioli and Johnny Noble, two very quality players who are very opposites in what they do. And it's amazing that all their strengths are probably what Dylan needs to work on, knowing when to attack, when to defend. I think you're spot on there, Demo. I think he is going to be someone that will get, probably out of all them players they've matched, will get minutes early doors. And you've only got to watch. I remember watching him against Carlton just at the back end of the VFL. He absolutely torched us off halfback, and we had some very good players out there. We had some very good AFL senior listed forward half players, and you could see just how much disrespect he showed them. He looked them, stood them up, ran past them, took a bounce, and giggled on his way through. But because he's a rugby player, when he tackles you, he hurts you as well, which is a really nice thing. He doesn't miss tackles very often. When he gets you in them big arms of his, I think he's going to become a cult hero, Dylan Patterson. And yeah, I'm a big fan. I really like that acquisition. And yeah, you know, people complain about the much maligned draft, as we're calling it, but there's an old proverb my uncle taught me. It's better to ask for forgiveness than it is permission. And although he spent 25 years in jail, he's spot on. Do you know what I mean? It's easier to ask. Don't ask for permission. Ask for forgiveness. That's what they've got to do. So yeah, Gold Coast. Tell you what, they've got 5 players that I think every other club would wish they had. So fair play to them. They've done very well. And Viva La Academy, I guess.
Clarkey, the reigning premiers were able to match a bid and select one of the best midfielders in the draft, Dan Annable. It's just unfair, isn't it?
Yeah. No, yeah, fuck Brisbane. Yeah, no, I see what you're saying, Damien. I'm picking up what you're putting down. I think it's one of those cases where, I mean, you're not going to pass up the opportunity to get Dan Annable, right? So who can be mad at them for playing the game? Like this is the game. They now have generational talent literally in the wings of their mid unit at the very least, if not deciding to slot his skill in somewhere else in a side that is already probably predictable to say, a flag favourite for another year in a row? Like, it's not much has really changed for Brisbane. They're just adding more and more skill. And I think it goes to show that clubs that are really serious about football are spending a lot more time taking chances on players and doing their research and going, as much as I hate to say it, Geelong's form of, building good talent over a long term and keeping your reserves high, going after the best available talent. Like Brisbane are in their window and they're not wasting time just going, well, things are good now and they're going to be good forever. They're getting the best available talent that they can from every club that they possibly can. And from the draft as well. Yeah, sucks shit. It sucks shit to not be a Brisbane fan right now.
Brisbane is and that's my only query with Dan Annable as a rookie is he might play, but where do they fit him in? Like he's not going to be like he's a midfielder, and do they play him off half back? Does he slide in to a half back role, and do they move someone else out? Or do they put him at half forward, or do they find somewhere in the midfield for him? Like their team is stacked wherever he fits in. You can't really predict it right now.
Not at all. Not at all. But I'd be surprised if we saw him early this season without any sort of, touch wood, any concerns or injuries to the core squad over the preseason. But yeah, I'd be surprised to see him early on. This is definitely like we'll see him in a year, 2 years. Like for sure he'll be there.
There were 5 mature age recruits picked up in the draft. We love mature age recruits in Supercoach because they're ready to go. They don't need any development. We had the likes of Sam Davidson last season that played every single game for the Western Bulldogs that he was available, and he was a really good cash cow for us. Some people kept him even on the bench just as bench cover, which was a good tactic as well. We've already spoken about Latrell Pickett. He was a couple of years older than the current draft class. But Tobin Murray got picked up out of Geelong's VFL by Fremantle, Billy Cootie by Sydney, Angus Anderson by Collingwood, and Ty Hayes by Brisbane. Pommy, what can you tell me about these mature age recruits?
You know what? I really like the fact that I was huge on Tobin Murray for Carlton, and I pushed this agenda so much that it actually became a ratified rumour. I'm gonna call it was me who started it as a rumour, because it was about 3 months ago. I was like, Tobin Murray just strikes me as the anti-Christ of what Carlton draft. And unfortunately, I didn't get him. But Tobin Murray is a proper Geelong product. Like, it's really annoying when you watch Geelong's VFL program, because there's about 8 players at any one time that probably could play AFL football. But he's really hard at it. He does all the basics well. And it's really frustrating being a Carlton fan that we can do like the K-pop style stuff, the in vogue, the exciting. We can't do the basics though. And without basics, the exciting stuff is pointless. This guy is just hard at it. And he reminds me a little bit of Lachlan Schultz 2.0, which doesn't surprise me. Fremantle pounced on it. He works incredibly hard. At the fall of the ball, he's a nuisance. He's looking to bring other players in. He's not a prolific goal kicker. He does take the opportunities when he gets it. But as a Fremantle fan, as Collingwood fans are starting to realise when the media say Lachlan Schultz is overpaid and useless, what he brings makes other players better. And that is really nice for Fremantle. When I look at your forwards, I don't think there is that hard edge, that ugly, that blue collar type guy. I know you've got Switkowski and players like that. I think it's more sexy. I look at Murray, he's the glue that holds that together. He's going to chase. He's going to allow the others to be exciting. So I think he's a really good acquisition and a super exciting talent. So Fremantle have nailed that one. You should be happy with that one. Big fan of Tobin Murray.
And I think he's best 23. I don't know who he kicks out of the Dockers best 23, but I think they've drafted him to play him.
Yeah, no, I agree. I agree. And there's quite a few mature age ones, like you've talked about Cootie as well. Proper Sydney selection, this one. Very surprised about that no one else picked him up, because another guy that moved away, and I love these stories. So he moved back to South Australia, was in the VFL Essendon for ages. I think he was captain as well for a long time. Moved over, went to Norwood, works really hard, a real combative link man. And that's really interesting. When you look at Sydney, that's probably one of the holes they've got. They probably don't have enough guys that link the midfield to the half-forward line. And when you've watched him this year playing out at Norwood, he's really stood out. And Sandful's probably the closest we have in Australia to the AFL in terms of physicality. So he really stood out. So I think he's going to be a guy that will surprise people and get games. Much surprise from some other people. The other guy I really like is Ty Hayes, Southport's very own. We love a little bit of Hayes. We've commentated on him a few times on the watch-alongs because Carlton always play horribly against Southport. But this is an interesting one, because I'd say the one area that the mighty Brisbane Lions could maybe find you a role is coming off the wing. I reckon that's probably the only place. They like to rotate through there, but I think long-term they would like a guy that they can rely on and say, right, he's our permanent winger. We know that Clog likes to swing on there and then come back in. They've got Lyons there, who I don't think is going to live there forever. I think that's probably the next step, is to try and find someone younger. And this guy, elite kick, but he kicks goals as well, which is a huge thing. An attacking threat from the wing. I reckon Ty Hayes will play, my big call, 10 games minimum for Brisbane this year. I think he's going to be a really good acquisition.
And everyone spoke about Collingwood needing midfield depth. Angus Anderson addresses that straight away, and he's also got that height that covers for when Scott Pendlebury and Seal Sidebottom can't play in the middle. So I think Angus Anderson gets a pretty big role in 2026 as well. But we all know that Fly, he likes to chop and change that team all the time. So, I mean, I think Angus Anderson plays part of the season, plays a good amount of games, but I don't know if he starts in round one or what happens there. But I think he's one to put on your watch list for sure.
Couldn't agree more. Collingwood as well, just sneaky as well, doing the they love them academy players, don't they? They really do love them like late academy players. And not many people know this about Gus, but he was a Sydney Swans academy player when he was eligible for the draft. So he was actually their captain and he was in the leadership group at the Allies. So they've really stuck to that model they have of going. Obviously, they got Tyan Prindable, who I'm sure we'll talk about later, but they like that stealing from the academies. So Gus Anderson's comes from good bloodlines. Sydney Swans has the high pressure recruitment. Gone to Sturt, done really well there as well. So he's not just a unknown. He's bided his time, but he's got a lot of miles under the belt at 22.
Yeah, for sure.
I'm
I mean,
particularly a fan of his work with Rose Tattoo as well. Is that a good joke?
That.
Is that going to play?
That was good.
We're going to keep
that was good. I rated that. That might go over some heads.
We'll talk about Tyan Prindable now. So Collingwood had to come in and address their midfield depth, and that's exactly what they did. We've spoken about Gus and Anderson, and you've spoken about Tyan Prindable, but then they also picked up Sam Swadling. Like, all of these guys could come in and play a role in 2026 for Collingwood, but we have to remember they've also got Ed Allen waiting in the wings as well. So they've addressed what they needed to, and any one of these players could play 23, 26 games for Collingwood this next season and be a good pick. It's just a matter of which one gets the nod by the buyers.
Yeah, now, I mean, Sam Swadling, you'll know all about him being out in WA, Damo, but what we said about Cumming, see about Swadling, a guy that was incredibly disrespected in the draft. And I always say it, Tasmania and Western Australia don't exist in draft circles. They might as well be English because they get zero media coverage and they don't exist at the AFL media. But Swadlin's work is as impressive as Sam Cummins. And there's the disparity. One's a top 10 player. Sam Swadling, we're talking what? He was taken nearly pick 40, where we're talking about throwaway picks. But this guy here screams Collingwood. Hard-working, runs hard two ways, does the basics very well, links up well. You can't ask for a better one. And Zach McCarthy, I don't know how Collingwood did it, but in my opinion, easily the second best ruck forward in this craft behind Cooper Duff-Tytler. This guy is a star in the making. I think Zach McCarthy's the best recruit out of all these at where they got him. It was pretty much for free. Pick 55, it was just their next pick. Great recruitment that for them. Great recruitment. I don't know how they did it because Carlton, we didn't get lucky with Jack Eisen. A lot of clubs, you stole Adam Swade. I don't know how Collingwood hid that one away when there wasn't many ruck forwards, but that is the pick of the bunch for me to get him at 55. You're laughing at that point.
Yeah, Clarkey, there were a lot of academy players that weren't matched. Like Lockie Carmichael wasn't matched by the Swans. He went to the Western Bulldogs. Adam Swade went to Fremantle. Tyan Prindable went to Collingwood. Kobe Evans went to Brisbane. And yeah, so like a lot of like usually teams would match these players, and some people wonder if teams do it just to be funny, just to make teams like lose their draft picks and points. But when you bid on a player as high as you do, like in Lockie Carmichael's case, you kind of expect that team has a plan to play them.
Yes. Is that the question?
That's the question.
Did I win? Did I get it right? I think it's interesting because it's very much a balancing act, isn't it? Because I think the bid matching, as somebody who, admittedly, I love being in the same room as Pommy, yourself, and Damo, two people in my life who have their eyes so firmly on the draft. Pommy, I watch pretty much all of your TikTok videos come across my feed very often, and I will watch them all the way through. And it's kind of how I stay up to date on these things. The bid matching stuff feels like nonsense, and it feels like some kind of weird magic where it's just like, oh no, well, I'm going to play the game and make you use your points. And that's why we saw Gold Coast trying to get as many picks as they could to get these magical special points that gave them the ability to get the players that they want. So I think the funniest thing that could ever happen in a draft, in my eyes, would be for someone to try to force match a bid and then end up with a player that they didn't want. But I don't think feasibly that would ever happen, right? Because as a AFL club and as a list manager, you have to go into the draft with a plan for whoever the person available is. Like you wouldn't go in with that idea of like, meh, I just want them to use their picks. I just want them to match the bid, because it's not really going to help you to do that. You need to be focusing on getting the talent that's available to you and getting what's on the board that's available to you. So I think if you're taking a guy, you've got a plan for him, right? Like that's no matter where you take them. Like we've just been talking about guys who have been taken in the 40s and 50s and 60s who are absolutely massive talents. I've got big stocks in Tobin Murray and Sam Swadling, as I picked them up in a keeper league draft just after the national draft. So I've got big stonks in them. So I think you get to a certain point where lists are just sort of, they're going for depth and they're going for development. And I think, Pommy, you've said it a few times now over the course of this episode, which I think is something that we as fans kind of, it feels more natural and we don't often acknowledge it, where the game is actively changing year on year. It's becoming more about these guys who come in, and we don't think of players as needing to be like these big hitting brick shit house kind of builds. It's more about athleticism, and it's more about technical ability and the ability to accurately kick the ball, the ability to combine speed and accuracy and technique and those kinds of things, which is why we're seeing a lot more players as well come cross code, because there's these needs that need to be filled. So I think the drafts are only going to get more interesting as we do that, and more varied, which, you know, bid matching is the dark arts and absolute bullshit. I don't understand it. All players should be taken because you need them.
Almost at the end of the episode, the 26 positions for Supercoach was revealed yesterday by Code Sports. Bodie Hewland, Sully Roby, Cooper Duff-Titler, Sam Grill, and Jacob Farrow all have DPP. Zeke Hewland is a defender midfielder. Sully Roby is a midfielder forward. Duff-Titler is a forward ruck. Sam Grill is a defender midfielder. And same with Jacob Farrow. So dual position puts them up the tier list straight away. And that's it for this episode of the Mailbag, where we've been looking at the draft. Pommy, thank you so much for joining us. What have you got planned for the rest of the season and your plans for 2026?
Well, look, I don't know when this goes to air, but I will exclusively reveal tomorrow, which will be, the 28th, when you're watching this. And maybe back in time, so this might be past Pom talking to present Pom. A paradox we've created in the time continuum. We've got a 2026 preview of the AFL draft. So we're going really early. We're going to be talking about names that no one's revealed in the media as well. So that's going to be really exciting, because any idiot can talk about Cody Walker for days. But you are actually going to see our simulator with the predicted 2026 rules in that, which have become incredibly complex. And just as you guys have been talking about, the bid match, the dark arts, next year, the dark arts become incredibly hard to master. So you've got to be like a real Severus Snape type man to get around this. So you're going to see how this is going to really impact the draft. And there's quite a few landlocked players. So that's going to be a really interesting video. But aside from that, we just got a lot of fun at this time of the year. There's some silly things. We're doing a live stream for the Ashes, so we'll be live 5 days. So that'll be quite fun. We have a Christmas show coming up. So yeah, come on over to the PommyInOZ channel. We're in off-season mode, so we're not as miserable as we usually are. A little bit more light-hearted. And then once Carlton start playing, I'll go back to being a miserable old guy.
And Clarky, thank you. We are in the midst of planning our 50th episode, which should go up sometime in December.
Hopefully. Maybe not.
We're waiting.
Something.
Yeah, we're waiting for some schedules to align.
The stars. I am consulting the astrology maps. I have spoken directly to Pisces, but he's just non-committal. And it's honestly, I'm getting to the end of my tether with him. He's having me on. I keep on texting him. He's just not getting back to me.
You might need to talk to his manager.
I've got a meeting with Sagittarius planned for next Tuesday.
Excellent.
So I'll let you know how that goes.
Thanks, Clarky. Always good value. If you haven't given us a rating on your listening platform of choice, please do so. It helps new listeners find us. Head to thefootymailbag.net. Lots of changes going on over there. So if you see the website moving around a bit and the theme changing and buttons moving around, it's because I'm setting it up for next season. Lots of good stuff going to happen there next year. I'm at DamoSC on Twitter, @an_ after that for Instagram. Clarky, where can people find you?
You can find me at QuantumJC, but in the off season, I don't touch Twitter because it makes my mental health like 40% better. Hey, little people, just follow us on your podcast app, go to our website, and keep yourself sane. Go do nice things for people and not have to be told immediately. The algorithm wants to be upset. The world is on fire, but that doesn't mean that your world has to be. Be nice to each other.
Thanks for listening. We'll talk next time.
Make sure you follow Pommy on TikTok. It's the best football TikToks that are around. I love them.